So, we have no, we don't, call this meeting, I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you would, stand and follow along with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it'll be followed by an invocation. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you pray with me, please? Father God, as we come before your throne right now, it's with true humility to thank you for the opportunity that you've given each of us up here on the dais to represent the city of Branson. Help us, Lord, to follow your Spirit's leading tonight as you guide us and direct us in all that we do and say and think. Bless all those that are here and all the families that are represented. Bless our community, our president, and our country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Artie. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Harkness. Lucas. Here. Cooper.
Here.
Milton.
Here.
Denham.
Here.
Scholes.
Here.
Williams.
Present.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Our agenda tonight is discussion on the City of Branson's 2027 legislative priorities. It'll be introduced by Alex Gerard. Oh, Alex.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and Board. Could have the presentation please pulled up. Wonderful. All right. Well, for this evening's study session, as the mayor mentioned, this is really to host a public discussion for the Board of Aldermen and Mayor to, one, collate and produce their ideas for the legislative session on both the state and local level. The study session's format is set up to provide discussion, to provide open dialogue, and ultimately the goal here then would be to, at a future meeting, bring all of these ideas back into a formal resolution for the Board of Aldermen to officially adopt into a resolution to provide to their regional or state partners, our lobbyist, our state senator, our state representative, and other committee members throughout the state to advocate for the priorities that the board deems are worthy. So just to kind of give you an overview here, cities typically gather legislative priorities for state level issues, whether it's a policy statement, whether it's a funding matter, whether it's an actual statutory amendment that needs to happen. This type of conversation and discussion really helps identify the biggest issues that our community faces and potentially the greatest way to mitigate these and provide impact at the state level. So for 2027, as you can imagine, we've set forth a timeline back a few months ago. The aldermen had reached out, and the mayor, I believe, to their constituents and residents and special interest groups to gather priorities and ideas, possible ideas for legislation that impact our business community, our residents, and as representatives of the city, the aldermen will put these items forward this evening for a larger discussion. So that's tonight. At the July 28th meeting, Barjay and Associates, that's the city's contracted lobbyist, Chris Ropey, he will attend to provide a 2026 state session recap of how the legislative session went this last year. Barjay and Associates has been the city's lobbyist for a number of years. He's done an excellent job. He's a great partner, and he's really our eyes and ears in Jefferson City, so we're very thankful to Barjay and Associates. At a future date determined by the Board of Aldermen, this is where tonight's discussion will be formatted and finalized into a list of priorities via resolution. The Board of Aldermen then can think about this for the next couple weeks until our next meeting, and we can put that in a resolution form and have it formally adopted to be the city's priorities moving forward. This is very early. This is something that I think this board really wanted to push for sooner than later, and so we're having this conversation in July. The session, obviously December 1st, is pre-filing of bills for the 2027 legislative session at the state level. So it's always great to get ahead of these issues and connect with legislators and certain committee chairmen ahead of time to try to get bills drafted and get your issues out there. But if the board takes the full 90 minutes this evening and needs more time to discuss, there is some breathing room here, and that's available. So if we need to on the 28th instead, if you all decide you want to have more conversation, that's great. We got a little bit of time baked into our overall timeline. So just can I give you a little bit of an overview first? What we're going to cover this evening is our state priorities. Later in this presentation, we'll also be walking through local priorities, and that is local ordinances that the city would be addressing and changing for city code. But these first ones are really for state level priorities, so this is state statutory amendment. Just kind of give you an overview here between what the aldermen had submitted and what city staff had submitted. These are just kind of the global universe out there of ideas. And so I just wanted to put this in one common slide so we can get a better understanding first before we dive into each one. And so the Board of Aldermen actually had submitted, a few aldermen had submitted some great ideas into this conversation, and to respectfully turn this conversation over to them at this time, I'd invite the aldermen who submitted ideas to maybe walk through what some of these proposals are, some of their thought processes, discuss this with their colleagues, have this in an open setting so folks can hear and weigh in. And so what I can do is I can help manage the process here, but I would like to respectfully at this time turn it over to our aldermen who submitted in some items 1 through 3 here, and they can kind of walk you through some of the specific details. After this, we'll go through the state level priorities that city staff submitted, but at this time, I'd love to turn it over to the board. Thank you.
And I believe the first item is largely mine, if you'd like me to start with that.
Oh, yes, Glenn, sorry.
So the first item, let me preface it to say it's premature. And by premature, I mean we have another discussion that'll happen later tonight regarding a 7-year capital plan. And this was more in anticipation of having that plan done and the potential for these kinds of things. So please don't read into it that these are necessarily that we should do them in the current setting. But let me just quickly highlight what they are. So, we've gone through this issue multiple times over the years where we realize that ticket resellers aren't collecting taxes on ticket sales for theaters, amusements, and so on. And we get pushback at the state level when we ask our representatives to try to address this because the lobbyists from the really big ticket resellers that are more concerned about Chiefs games and other things say, no, wait a minute, we don't like this. I think by placing it here within our tourism tax bill, in our tourism tax legislature, we might avoid those voices coming in and talking about our local issues and just make it a Branson-specific thing for our tourism tax. So that's the first point. Secondly, and this will come up again a little bit later, but reseller fees, service fees, convenience fees, and charges are all taxable, related topic to that. We could take a look at what was attempted earlier in the year to include expenditure of the tourism tax on things that aren't anticipated in the current legislation. And we could also review the 25-75 split and ask, does it fit with our future needs? Some other things that are possible here just on this whole subject of tourism tax. Today, our restaurant tax rate is 0.5%. When you look at the 2025 numbers, it's interesting to note that in the tourism revenue category, restaurants were 43% of tourism revenue. They contributed 8% of tourism tax. So just let that sink in terms of potential. If you were to up the restaurant tax to 2%, you'd have an additional $2.5 million based on the 2025 budget. I'm not suggesting this is necessary again. I'm just saying it's an option as we look at our capital spend. Again, tax collected by resellers, and then I think those are just recapping what the other ones were. So I'll stop there for any questions or comments.
Glenn, I have a few questions. We went down this road, I'm going to guess 7, 8 years ago when I was an alderman. And it went through the state. It was a big battle. I know locally Gail Meyer was specifically a real opponent against doing any of the suggestions you have. We went back and forth a little bit locally. When it got at the state level, they just shot it down. And they wrote, we have to look to see what they wrote as far as statutes of, this is just not allowable within the state. Now, possibly your twist of having it under the umbrella of tourism tax, and would that get it out from underneath the state's regulations that they have put in place? I think that would be an interesting question to ask. But just know that was a pretty heavy fight. And I know Clay was there and some of the old guard were there during those fights.
That's really why I thought maybe we could try it here. I was aware of that history.
Okay.
And it just seemed like, if we're going to open up the tourism tax for other modifications, this might be one worth trying because it would limit the scope and outside influence. It might get struck down again, but it might be worth trying.
Well, and I mean, I don't know how you feel, Mayor, but it was a fight, but I don't think we shouldn't fight again. I mean, you know what I mean? I agree with all that. I've never understood why everybody pays taxes except this one category of people. It just makes, and in the end, it really hurts a lot of us. The fact that because it changes the whole ballgame and how, you know what I'm saying? Well, you know exactly what I'm saying.
I do know.
Totally support that. And I don't know what your thought is of putting that in the tourism. I mean, what is your thought on that, Glenn? I mean, how would that look?
I'm not trying to wordsmith it right now. I think we could get to that. I think if we have general agreement that this might be something we'd want to approach at the right time, we can come up with the wording and kind of hash it out and work with our representatives to make sure that they're in support of that kind of wording to take it up to the Jeff City. Again, I think right now, though, some of these other things that we might wish to consider, we have to kind of put off until we go through our capital planning. And then that would tell us what would be the scope of changes we'd be asking for in tourism tax. I probably should just note the restaurant tax question. The current legislature already authorizes that up to 2%. So that one wouldn't, unless you wanted to go beyond that, that one wouldn't be a change at Jeff City, but it would have to go out to the voters with some justification.
Yeah, and I would just want to double check that. My understanding, and I'm not saying it's right, was we could move the 0.5% up to 1%. But if it says 2%, that could be a number. Would you calculate 2.5 million?
Yeah, whichever number it is. I mean, it's an opportunity.
Number, yeah.
I think if we can justify it, if the voters see a value in it, what we're going to do with the money, it might be a possibility.
Yeah. Ruth, do you have something?
Just to confirm, this is increasing taxes and then delving into the 25-75% ratio?
Glenn?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the
So
question.
this is actually, what this is saying is there's going to be an increase in taxes and then delving into the 25-75% ratio, the infrastructure tourism ratio.
I would look at this as kind of a smorgasbord of things we might consider as we look at our capital plan. I'm not suggesting all of these or any of these. It really just comes out of thinking about where we want to go with the capital plan and how we might fund it. And I just wanted to get options on the table and add the thing about the resellers and their fees and so on, since it seemed like an opportunity if we're going up to Jeff City.
And
Okay.
Ruth, it could be as simple as the tourism tax could possibly stay consistent with the 75-25. And then if we could get this additional tax, which is where your hot button's gonna be, I'm assuming, we get this additional tax under the tourism tax, then that would be a third revenue source for us to determine where would we want that revenue allocated.
I just see increase in tax, spend more for a sports facility, and delve into the ratio for tourism infrastructure. That's what I see on this one. So I'm just confirming that's what this is saying.
I'm optimistic, and I know I'm speaking out of school. Speaking out of school, meaning I don't have any insider information, but we're getting our study back on the sports complex, I believe, in about 30 days. First part, middle of August. And when we get that, Ruth, if it shows that the amount of money coming into our community exceeds the cost of the facility, then that would be offsetting future taxes against our residents. So I see it as a reduction of cost to our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other aldermen? Hearing none. Glenn, do you want to move on?
I think the next one's somebody else's.
Okay, so we're progressing down to number 2. On tourism development zone, I put that on my state level priorities list as a byproduct from our leadership trip. I can see some other folks I attended the trip with, like Ms. Pam from the Chamber of Commerce. That's one of the tools that the state of Tennessee has that enables them to make Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, and Gatlinburg robust with some great facilities. And if you consider the folks that attended that leadership trip, just the wide, diverse group from the city to the Chamber, Taney County Partnership, and TCED, private business owners. It was a well-rounded group. Everyone was of the mind that tourism development zones would just be another tool, which right now the state of Missouri doesn't have them. So exploring the option of adding another financial tool that's not under the normal TIF or any other economic incentive that we're currently offering at the state or local level. So I saw that, and my other colleagues that attended the trip saw that, and so I thought that would be an appropriate thing to kick around with our state level priorities.
Alex, will you take a minute and share with us, that looks like the existing tourism tax we have now, and those funds are for the infrastructure, utilities. So it would be taking those additional items that you have, convention, sports facilities, streetscape, and I'm not sure what tourism corridors are, but I see if number 1 is asking to take those particular items and put them under our existing tourism tax.
It would be, so we have the tourism tax, which stands on its own. A TDZ in Tennessee, the way we understood it and talking to them, that revenue is coming from the state. And so because tourism in Pigeon Forge and Sevierville, Gatlinburg is so successful for the state, between the state and the county, which I know we have some differences in how counties are funded and ran in Tennessee versus Missouri, it's revenue that's not underneath the local tourism tax collected here. This is state revenue, which obviously we all know the state of Missouri's budget, so the likelihood of it being successful is probably slim to none. There's not a lot of extra money floating around, but the TDZs are funding that comes from the state level down, not just collected within, in this case, the municipality.
Yep, and going to the state, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to show the state that they'll be getting additional revenues that they're not getting today when we do these things.
That would be the case that I saw and everyone saw on the leadership trip, that the facilities were producing more drive to that market and then more spend that ultimately not only affected the local area but the state. So yes, I would assume that would be the case if if the General Assembly would support kicking around a bill that would establish tourism development zones in Missouri.
Yeah. Any questions for Alex on number 2? Okay, thank you, Alex, for that. Who's number 3?
I think this one's an amalgamation of several of us, so do you want to kick it off?
I'll start with the Gateway Monuments. I trace it back to what has our community already said about the topic and what documents that we as a city use every day already call for this. And I look to the Community Plan 2030. Community Plan 2030 clearly cites that we want gateway monuments. And then you take it a step farther and you talk to the aldermen, people, you know, when you come to visit Branson, simply put, you don't have the grand welcome, you've arrived monument sign anywhere. And so there's opportunities between the 76 SID project that are already ongoing that we're continuing to give our community a facelift. And so I think it would be good that we continue to work with the state and MoDOT to make our case that we do need to have you have arrived to the greatest tourism destination in the state of Missouri, where, you know, we just got enabling legislation last year that labeled us as the state's live music center of the state. And so when you have such things, and the governor even today speaking so highly of Branson, you know, using examples like when people, kings and queens, come to visit, they don't know where anything's at, but they're asking them about where's this Branson at. And so we need to help them figure out where Branson's at, and an easy way to do that, not everything costs money, but gateway monuments are something that we need to pursue.
And from my perspective, I think on this one, we understand that we have to approach the DOT to get land use access, but we also know how difficult that is. And I think this is more to warm up our representatives to ask for their help with this. It's probably not legislation per se, but somebody's got to put their thumb on the scale and say, hey, come on. Especially when you realistically look at our exits up and down 65, there is so much excess land by those exits that all they do is cut grass there all the time. You know, and then twice this past weekend, I drove by Bolivar, and again, I see those gigantic monument signs that are on DOT property. So I got to believe there's a way to get this done, and I think our state representatives can help us in that fight. We just have to have the commitment to say, at every exit up and down 65, we want significant welcome to Branson monuments.
Probably didn't hurt that the former governor lived in Bolivar either, but
Yeah.
but I totally agree with what you said.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just wanted to say thank you, Alderman Williams. When I was on the park board, I had talked with Cindy, because some of us who have been around here for a very long time used to be very, very beautiful on 65, 76, that corner, but MoDOT was concerned about the liability issues. So I had mentioned it to Representative Seitz as well. And I think this is great that we're going in with quite a few and asking for support on this. We'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful that we can have that beauty again.
Go ahead, Glenn.
And I'd add that this is also one to put on the 7-year capital plan, because if we're really going to be committed to a significant set of monument signs, there's some significant expense there as well. And if we're going to be so bold as to go to Jeff City and ask for help, I think we better have the money in hand for when we do get the help we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll bring that up under our capital plan. Al? Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know who this question's to, but how hard is it for, I mean, it's just them saying, yeah, you can use this right away. I mean, they're sign off saying that's fine and they're not liable, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's,
Some of it will be, I'm assuming the city will have to take responsibility, take over the
Sure.
liability.
sure.
But if they've done it in Bolivar, I'm sure precedent's already been set.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just as we're talking about our state representative, just a shout out. Thank you for being here so that when we do approach you, you are well aware of what we're talking about.
So Alex, we'll just move on from that. Who's on, thank you for bringing this up. Who's on number 4?
I think this one is also a combination of a couple aldermen. I think we've talked about workforce housing for a long time, and I know I've had it on my campaign messages for a couple of sessions. Most other people have campaigned to some degree or another on this topic. And, you know, we do have to acknowledge we have had some movement on this with LIHTC housing, CDBG funded housing, those kind of things, and that's all great. But when you hear the reports that we're a couple thousand housing units short, that's just a drop in the bucket. And so I personally believe we need a defined plan that works on workforce housing beyond just waiting for state grants to come our way that might enable that. And I think this might be one approach to it. There are certainly local level things we can do, but we've definitely need to develop a solid workforce housing plan for Branson. And by workforce housing, I think we agree this is not necessarily subsidized housing. This is housing that the average working family on Branson wages can afford.
Okay, any questions for Glenn on this? So who's on number 5? Well, I'm not,
I didn't put names of aldermen next to each item as I didn't want to single alderman out. So I figured, this was actually submitted though by Alderman Williams.
Yeah, so how it was submitted, that's why it was drawing me for blank. I put it under water sewer infrastructure review, and so the intent with that is part of the capital plan and having other revenue sources from the state. So we're a tourism community. We drag people in. I think we're the 3rd highest producing tourism revenue source for the state of Missouri. And so we send, you know, we have 13,000 residents here. We flex up to 250 or 300,000 people. The tourism tax obviously is 75% allocated to infrastructure. So is there an ability for our state, recognizing the amount of revenue we're bringing in, to help us figure out how to fund the infrastructure that's in the ground for this massive surge of people coming to the town of 13,000 people? We obviously have a responsibility and do that through local measures. This is just exploring the opportunity to help, you know, when you have that many people coming to this town and we're producing the type of revenue that we're producing for the state, that there might be some buy-in there to help us, not just the gas tax, but other avenues, because it's, I think number one's ag. I heard the governor mention today, and then we're right behind that. And so we should be able to make a big enough case as a tourism community that's hosting, you know, 8 to 10 million people, depending on the numbers of who you're speaking to, on just exploring the opportunity to help us with infrastructure. And I think we've seen that happen before, and we're grateful, so I don't want to overlook what's already being done, like when you get the governor's program for 76. So there are ways that it's already happening. So I guess it's just a restatement that we appreciate these types of things, getting buy-in from the state on our tourism infrastructure.
Okay, any questions on that? Hearing none. Number 6, pedestrian and safety, state routes.
And I'll continue. I have a handful of times, and I know some of my other colleagues have brought it up, there's a growing interest with the amount of people in the community walking about 76 and other locations. And I know we've seen the staff reach out and do a great job advocating on our behalf to MoDOT. And that's where I look to our state partners, state representative, state senator, to help us continue to work with MoDOT on the little things, ranging from, hey, are we going to use the little pylon signs that say yield versus stop? Are we placing it in the curb? Are we pushing it up onto the sidewalk up to, Fall Creek, the discussion that we've seen on Fall Creek? It's continuing to have the flexibility with MoDOT to let us do what we need to do as a city on their own roads, because it's their road, it's their rules. But they're visiting Branson. They're not going to say, when I almost got ran over, that was MoDOT's highway. They're going to say, I almost got ran over in Branson. And so for me, I just look to say, hey, what can we continue to do with MoDOT on flexibility, funding, because when you look at a hawk signal, we know that it has a huge accident reduction rate, but they all come at a cost. Am I excited we're getting them on 76 as part of the SID project? Absolutely. Is it a goal to get something like that more spread throughout the city? I'm sure, but it comes at a cost. And so, again, it goes back to money, but this can also be having a working relationship with MoDOT and letting us do some things that we would like to do on their roads that they have the final say on. And we've already seen that going. Director Woods does a great job. I know I've worked on one particular crosswalk, and I've already seen, as we have discussions, there's been adjustments made on MoDOT side and on the city side with pedestrian safety on state routes. So that's why I put that in my list.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think to put this as a priority is very wise for us as a city. I mean, I think about 248 in Yakov area, and I know that there's some ideas, but we have to have that relationship where MoDOT is willing to work with us. And then obviously sidewalks for Highway 165, we've done a great job, we've made progress, but we have to stay on top of it and keep pushing it. So I'm grateful to have this one definitely as a priority for us.
Okay, anybody else? Ruth?
I just really want to say thank you, because as Alderman Williams brought up, it's the little things that add up. And we had a meeting quite a while back, years back, and we have not been forgotten in Ward 3 in our subdivision, and we'll be getting some sidewalks in because people walk that road continually. Director Woods, Powell, Shook, thank you for always having your eyes out for grants as well, which is just hand in hand with what we try to accomplish, but it's just something you do on a daily basis, and it's greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Very nice. Okay, number 7?
Number 7 is mine. I think I spoke about this once on one of my reports, but it's happened again. I've had people approach me that know I'm an alderman and show me receipts and say, is the city crazy charging these kind of taxes? And I get to looking at the receipt, and it's not taxes at all. It's cleverly disguised fees, add-ons. We've got a hotel within a 1-mile radius of this building that's doing it. We've got ticket resellers that are doing it. And it hurts Branson. I mean, these are tourists who come to me as an alderman and say, what the heck are you guys doing? And if they start publicizing that on social media, suspicion becomes facts, and pretty soon we've got a mess. So my suggestion is, and I'm sure this isn't strictly a Branson issue, my suggestion is that we try to get some legislation enacted that requires that all that stuff has to be separated and identified as taxes versus vendor fees, so that the city is truthfully represented in those kinds of situations, whether it's quotations, receipts, websites, whatever, that we aren't the burden of the blame for just ridiculous charges. And I'm talking seriously ridiculous charges that the buyer is left to believe that it's city tax.
Glenn,
And they're not remitting taxes on all that, again. And, I'm sorry, I just jumped in. I could bring you dozens of examples of exactly what, of upset customers that we have that are getting shafted, and then they get to our box office and say, these are only $55 because I paid $130 a piece for them over here at this place. So, yeah, it's a problem.
Yep, for sure. Glenn, I really appreciate you bringing this up. This was a problem years ago, and then it seemed to die down. But I agree with you. I think it's reared its ugly head. It's only gotten worse. So for our, well, two things will happen. Our tourists then will have a better understanding of what all these add-on fees are, and possibly some of the culprits out there that are charging some fees that maybe they shouldn't be, maybe they may change some of their practices. So thank you very much for bringing that up, and I'll be very supportive of that. Who's on 8? Local Health and Safety Authority for extended stay lodging.
Mr. Mayor, that one's me. For this, in discussions with our lodging professionals and as well as other folks that operate businesses that are not lodging professionals, there seems to be this age-old discussion between who is a hotel, who is not a hotel, and then we've seen, the city get stuck in the gap of health, safety, lodging safety initiative definitions. And one of the things I've been told by our advocacy groups, like the Lodging Association being one, the health department being another, is there's some gaps at the state level in helping clarify, because our local level team cannot do its job, and we can only enforce the law according to what the law currently says. And so there's some missing clarity on who is a extended stay, who is not an extended stay, and then that spills over into other things. And there's other examples I listed on there where we've had discussions on recovery homes, boarding homes, group homes. So I think it would just be good to turn back to our state partners, since we're a fourth-class city, and say, hey, we really need some clarity here on what these things actually mean, because right now they're inhibiting business owners and government entities with the responsibility of health and safety downstream.
Thank you for bringing that up, and I know this is not the meeting to discuss these items, but with the representative here, maybe he could gather some information, and as we bring these topics up, the last understanding I had is what you stated, Alex, that the state has not designated a separate category for these uses. And so if they haven't done that, then we need to find out what the holdup has been and support ways to maybe bring that up again at the state level. But that's very true. And would you have any questions or comments on that? Number 9.
Back up again. So the goal behind this, again, we've talked about this to some extent, but allowing, at the local level, we're talking about doing what we can to help speed the business process up, get rid of clear or vague expectations, inspections. These happen at all levels of government. So again, where the local level has the greatest ability to get rid of red tape, I always like to look at the state as well in the same light, that if we can remove some barriers from the state to enable small business to do what it does best, it helps everybody. And so the more we can get government out of the way, which I think is another canned statement that came from Governor Kehoe today, the better. So in spirit of that, I would like to ask that our state government continue to look at, hey, where can we continue to help remove some barriers so that local government can help local business continue to be successful, because we're all going to benefit from a limited and effective government.
So Alex, these are state issues and not local issues?
They're both. I just know that if you were to leave it just at the local level, I think there's a reasonable expectation that there's bureaucracy at the local and state level. So it's being asked as a, hey, we need to reduce red tape, not just within the city of Branson, but if we can reduce some things from our state government, that will also be beneficial. So yes, it is not just a state-only problem, it is a state and local problem. And since we're looking at both state and local priorities, I wanted to make sure I captured that if we decide to make this a stance to share with our representative and senator.
Okay,
And Mr. Mayor?
any questions? Yes.
Well, President Trump just passed a bill also regarding the red tape with the construction and on down to the state. So I'm sure that'll be helpful in having the state level help us out as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Okay, number 10.
And that's with me as well. So with this, I've had a unique experience. I was there's a reason. So this is one example. I was running in downtown and was physically assaulted by somebody in downtown who was mentally unstable. Turned to find out that there are not many resources available for folks that are suffering these types of illnesses. I know in speaking with Representative Seitz, looking at the Department of Mental Health, just looking at taking care of our neighbors within the city, there are some significant gaps that put our law enforcement professionals in an awkward place where they're trying to look out for the safety and well-being of all people, and that includes the person with the mental health crisis. And then it puts people in a precarious spot. So it's asking the state to continue. I know that Representative Seitz was looking at a bill, I don't know if it got filed or not, but continuing to give tools to law enforcement, local level government to help protect those who can't protect themselves, as well as us being a tourism community. When we're bringing people here, we got to make sure that they're safe. And right now, our Department of Mental Health in the state of Missouri needs love, because the effects are felt downstream again for us in the city of Branson. I've personally witnessed it, and so that's what the specific example is included for. But that's why I'm asking our state leaders to look at mental health, substance abuse, and supporting our public safety professionals with the lack of tools currently available for mental health.
Any questions, comments from the board? Glenn?
Yeah, I'd just like to give strong support to this one, too. I think we realize a lot of the root cause issues of homelessness is mental health issues and drug issues. You take those two and you probably have addressed 90% of the homeless issues. And so anything that we can do to help these people get back to being productive members of society, off the streets, I think tools in our law enforcement and in our city war chests would be greatly appreciated from the state.
Yeah. I know years ago, actually, again, 7, 8 years ago when I was an alderman, I went and personally visited with several of the homeless. And what I get, and I was going with a bag of benefits that we currently already offer. And the clear message I receive from them is, thanks, but no thanks. We have the services. They just, at least the ones I talked to, they had no interest of giving up their little place in the world, whether it be a tree or wherever it was. And they were happy there, and it was just an absolute thanks, but no thanks. But I'm not going to poo-poo anything that if we could get something that could possibly help even a few of them, it'll be a great benefit.
And I mean, I too support this, I mean, because it is a raising, I mean, it's an ongoing concern and getting worse by the day. And so anything that can help them just helps all of us, you know?
Well, thank you, Mayor and Board, for that discussion. Here are some items that.
Excuse me, Alex, before we move on.
Mr. Mayor, I think there's another issue that we are probably going to have to look at in this next year or so. We visited it late last year with respect to data centers. And I know that we put together a strong resolution with respect to that and what we would allow in the city. But I know a high priority for the governor is data centers and increasing involvement with AI. And so I think it may be a topic that we might need to reconsider visiting in the future here.
Yep, okay, well, I was going to make a couple comments. One is, this is the first time that the majority of the board's had a chance to look at these. So, suggestion I'm going to make is, let's get these 10 sent to the board so we can review them, ask some questions, and maybe change a few or add a few, because I think this is something, this topic needs to be well thought out amongst the board, because these are going to be the topics that we're going to go to Ropey, our state lobbyist, to go beat up on these guys, higher up than him because he's supporting us. But I think we need to, this isn't, I just think that the board needs time to review these. One thing I would like to add, and I don't know if they've included that in any of these, is I would like to make this year a high priority of finally making a difference with 76 Strip. And the 76 Strip is between Highway 65 and the Auto Farm Museum, basically.
I think you'll see that,
No.
Mr. Mayor, on some of the local priority lists. I think you'll come across those.
Well, okay, but I'm looking for some state assistance. We need state assistance if we can prove to the state that with their assistance, and we get that area revitalized, that there's also additional revenue that would go towards the state. The state knows it's a black eye coming into Branson, and it's really embarrassing. And we've said that for years and years. But I think we make that very serious effort. So no matter what we need to do, I know we need to spend some brain cells, some focused meetings on opportunities. I know Alex has looked at some things earlier this year. We placed in our budget for our 2026 budget, we allocated $750,000 into that particular corridor, not knowing what we could or couldn't do with it, not knowing what abilities we had, but I think it's high time. We'd be hard-pressed to find businesses or citizens that would not support that effort. So I would say that would maybe go not only on the list, but maybe a couple stars next to it.
Mayor?
Yes.
I had this discussion actually about this very topic with a friend of mine who's on the Silver Dollar City Board today at the luncheon, and he said that is the number one most ongoing, one of the most biggest discussions that they have in their regular meetings is the strip and the condition of the strip, and if you took a heat map and shown where most money is always spent, it's still on the strip. I mean, Yeah,
right.
Silver City does what it does, and it's amazing, and you look all over, but that's where the majority of all the tourist money is being spent, on the Strip. And when you drive down that section, it's pretty ugly. So let's put 5 stars next to it.
Yeah. So what the 76 CID is doing, just for some education, is they're investing millions. And when I say millions, the last number I heard for the entire 76 CID was 110 million. That's a lot of money. And we just approved, we're out to bid and getting our bonding, getting our funding for phases one and 2. Phase 3 has been completed. However, we need to go back to phase 3 and do a little more, don't we, Clay?
Thank you, Mayor.
But we're in the middle of, actually, our bids are out right now. So our plan is to actually break ground on the Strip in September, October of this year. Construction's going to take 12 months. When that construction is done, that portion of the Strip is going to be beautiful. It really will. And that portion we're out to bid, we don't know, but we're in the neighborhood of $35–40 million for that section. So the SID only goes down to that Auto and Farm Museum. The 76 SID, which is beautifying 76, does not include this area that we're talking about. So in the 76 CID SID terms, these are segments 7 and 8. There's no SID agreement for any of those property owners. There's just, nothing's been done on that. And that's going to be years and years and years down the road. So the reason that SID doesn't make sense in segment 7 and 8 is there's not enough businesses in that corridor to generate enough revenue to be able to be applied, any tax revenue to be able to be applied to the improvements that that area needs. So there's more information that we need to get out about what we're doing on the Strip. But like I said, this area is, that if we can, we'll refer to them as, for SID purposes, Section 7 and 8. We just can't wait 10 years to start working on that. And I'm going to guess almost every year I've been here, that's been brought up as an issue. So it's time to, yes?
Is there anything the city can do, like just with an empty lot here and there, just to put a Band-Aid on it, just until we get to that point? If there's old chain link fence that's been sitting there unattended for 30 years, can we,
Kathy?
you know what I'm saying?
Let's ask Kathy.
So this is a great discussion, by the way, today, so thank you guys for that. But on this particular issue, you're right, Mayor, to bring up that $750,000 original investment that we were looking to make, and we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed that we wanted to be able to offer perhaps low or no-interest loans to existing property owners on the properties that are blighted and of most concern, and to help share in the cost of demolition was the goal, because that's always tends to be the most cost-prohibitive first step. And then once we got the green light from you guys, we're like, okay, now let's go and craft this program. And Alex and I are used to seeing these types of loan programs or revolving loans at the federal and state level. And then we found out that fourth-class cities didn't have the authority to actually do that. And so that kind of, we had to screech the brakes a little bit there. But that's why this is very helpful to hear you guys talk about your enthusiasm to that, because I would like our legislators to maybe craft out a special Branson-only, you guys know how to write that special language, right? That it would only apply to Branson on a tourism corridor of a community with so many people or less, and visitors with so many people or more, however you guys want to say it with your magic words, and allow us to have that authority. And it's great if we can get state money too to match, but even if we can't, if we could just dip our toe in the water and try something like this, And again, when the property sells, right, and there'll be lots of strings attached to this, and it's a whole long fraught process. But if we can get that authority granted to us from state law, then we could pursue something like this. And maybe we would be the example that other communities could follow. So we would love to blaze the way with your help.
Kathy, that is a very, very worthy tactic to accomplish this. Ashley?
Thank you. I also wanted to remind us all that we applied for opportunity zones, and 76 is one of them. I think it got submitted as opportunity zone number 2. And Alex, when is that before the governor to sign? But before you answer that, even before we get these all officially to Senator and Representative Branson, it would be great if you guys could help us get those opportunity zones signed by the governor. That incentivized developers to do demolition on 76. It kind of labels it all as blighted areas, some of the stuff that we were just talking about. So that will be really great for our city if we can get those passed.
And to answer your question, it's later this year. I don't have the exact month in front of me, but it is later this year. And we actually have the ordinance already drafted. It's ready to go. We have the blight demolition revolving loan fund. We actually have that ready to go. So it's really just, the issue we came to, as Kathy mentioned, was the statutory authority. And it's something that's gray. We could probably maybe do the program, but you don't want to risk litigation or getting challenged. And so having that explicit authority from the legislature would be very helpful. It's a fourth-class city.
That's great. And so Brian will be asking for support on that. Not Brian, Representative Seitz. Sure, Kathy?
One other thing I just want to get a sentiment from you all about, which is even you guys have some like more Branson issue specific things, which is great for us to work toward. The other thing I wanted to remind you that's important is whether or not, whether we can lend the city of Branson's support for or opposition to a particular initiative coming before a committee or before the legislature. And giving us that, if you want us to empower our lobbyists to say, go to a committee hearing and there's an issue that maybe isn't Branson specific, but we see how it might negatively impact our city, for example, to give us the authority to tell our lobbyists to register against that proposal. Or conversely, which is more fun, to be able to go to committee hearings and support their colleagues or their own bills, obviously, legislation, and register in favor of something that we think is in the better economic or social health of the city or the state of Missouri. And the reason why that benefits our city in particular is because the more policymakers hear the name, the city of Branson feels this way, the city of Branson supports, the city of Branson opposes, right? That registers in lawmakers' minds. And it just they keep hearing the city of Branson. Am I right, guys? Right? And it raises our profile and their awareness that, hey, Branson is engaged in the legislative process and that they came to play, right? And I think that can help build the swell that we're looking to get going with our partners at the Chamber and CVB and others, Taney County Partnership and our neighboring municipalities, of this region of the state needs to be paid attention to, and we're serious. And we're not just going to come with gripes and complaints, we're going to come with solutions. We want to be leaders, we want to be pioneers in changes and reforms. Let us lead the way, get out of the way, and let us show you what we can do. So I want you guys to give some thought to that as well, on how involved and active should we be in all of the legislation that comes before our lawmakers. And I think it's very worth the investment to be able to do that.
Yep.
Mayor?
Yes, Glenn.
Just, I support that notion from Administrator Stepp. I'd also say I think we've really put the ordinance in place to facilitate exactly that. You know, all we have to do is put the specific item on the agenda, agree that that's something we want to do, and you've got the enabling ability to activate our lobbyists or whatever action has to be taken.
And I appreciate that. The challenge with that, Alderman Schultz, is sometimes you don't have that kind of time. Like, I don't have time to agenda it, research it, right? We get reports from our lobbyists on, you know, how does MML feel about this particular issue, et cetera. And we don't always need to side with MML, by the way. But I wouldn't really, it'd be too cumbersome for me to bring all these different bills, maybe that are coming up for committee, schedule it, get it to you a couple weeks in advance before a board meeting. I don't know how the timing would work with committees. I think we would have a good feeling if it's something that, you know, helps tourism, right, in the state. Well, what's the harm in having our lobbyists register in favor? Obviously, you would have to trust in my judgment and Alex's judgment on which things that we think you guys would be supportive of. And we wouldn't do it all the time and on every single issue, but on things that matter, that could impact our community and our residents.
Very good. Anybody else? Ruth, do you have something? Well, when's it going to be? Not yet. Sure. Clay?
While we're talking about all these ideas and stuff, has there been any follow-up with the Veterans Village, tunnels to towers, or any more communication since?
We reached out initially and had that conversation.
I mean, I was here when we had the Zoom call with the guys, and is that the last communications we've had with them?
It is, yes.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Because I really think that we have a great opportunity in a lot of empty hotels that could be very suitable for tunnel to towers veterans villages. And I brought this up many, many months ago, and I know you reached out and we had the Zoom call, and I know it's not as easy as just saying, hey, we got all these rundown hotels. I realize that, and I realize that they're looking at bigger cities, and it's a little tougher because we're a smaller populated place, but man, we have a lot of homeless veterans and a lot of hotels that are just sitting empty, and I'd really like to keep that going if possible.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I have one, just with Clay, I feel like that also ties back into the mental health priorities, because a lot of our veterans are some of our friends that are out on the street, so there might be some double opportunity to help with that.
Okay. With that, I think this was an excellent.
Actually, Mayor, we still have some more to go,
Oh, we do?
if you don't mind. Yep.
Oh,
So thank you, Board, for the discussion tonight, and Mayor. Some of the items here that you can see is staff submitted. We pulled all the directors in their departments and wanted to find opportunities and nexus in order to put forward ideas that might make sense for the board to consider. A lot of these you've already talked about, right? Clarify and remove ticket sale loopholes. Provide a little bit of color on that. Currently, the city of Branson's practices, we only collect tourism tax on the point of sale initially. So let's say a theater in town has a ticket for $5 and they sell that to a ticket reseller, and they might sell it for $50 or $100. We actually only collect the tourism tax on the initial retail part, which is from the theater. That is based on some case law. That's our interpretation of that. That is the safest way to collect that tax without being challenged. There's been some actual cases that the city of Branson has been involved in on this issue in previous years. And so that's currently the city's perspective. But I will tell you, if you actually read the tourism tax statute, it says the price paid or charged for any admission ticket to or participation in any private tourist attraction in such municipality. So that's basically saying the price paid or charged. And so I think the legislature has a real opportunity here to clarify and maybe fix some case law determinations and provide more clarity to cities like ours that collect tourism tax. The other one is amending section 94.815. This is to expand the tourism tax statutory authority for the city of Branson's existing tourism tax to include the financing and construction and maintenance of an indoor sports facility. In addition, to support the creation of a dedicated sewer, water, state infrastructure grant or financing program. Municipalities like Branson generally are penalized from grant programs due to a lot of factors. The LMI, the low to moderate income, is where a lot of the state funding from CDBG to other types of grant funding opportunities try to direct that money to those types of communities for the benefit of them. Branson sometimes falls outside of that threshold, and obviously being a tourism community with multiple sources of revenues inside, state agencies, normally when they're directing grant funds, they look for the highest and best use and need. And sometimes Branson, population-wise, we fit a lot of those criteria, But when they see operating budget, tourism tax, water sewer rates, they look at all those things usually. And so it might be worth the legislature looking at finding ways to provide state funding opportunities to municipalities such as ours that fall kind of within the cracks. A few of these other ones we've already went through. I think the one that I want to touch on here is the the sixth one, which talks about extended stays in the state lodging code. So the current state lodging code, in Chapter 315, talks about defining lodging establishments. Basically says 5 or more rooms in a facility for hire, for lodging, for transient guests, permanent guests, or both transient and permanent guests. And so when you look at the definition of permanent, it talks about any person who rents or occupies a room for a period of 31 days or more. So that creates a lot of uncertainty here at the local level because our code primarily, when you look at a lodging establishment, if you look at the use category groups in our city, lodging is not in low-density residential, medium-density residential, high-density. In fact, it's in non-residential uses. And so that kind of gives you an idea that lodging was not meant as a use category to actually be a permanent housing situation. So enforcement of that is tough because we go out to a traditional licensed lodging establishment that you're supposed to be there for 30 days or less. And someone says, well, I have a lease. I live here. It's now a civil matter. And so this, as a city and as the police department, we don't get involved at that point. The other question, of course, is, being an extended stay, there's not a clear definition in code. And so if you look at lodging establishments, that's anywhere from 30 days and less. Apartments, 30 days and more. Short-term rentals are from day 2 to day 30. And so there is no real extended stay model. A lot of times lodging establishments too don't have the traditional facilities. Some are getting to be this way where they have a full-size refrigerator, true living type of appliances you would expect for a permanent guest. And so we would just like some help from the state legislature in helping clarify the permissible use of permanent guest. Maybe there's a revision that needs to happen. Maybe there's a larger discussion that should be had. And of course, in the Lodging Association might want to weigh in on this issue as well. But we definitely appreciate that from an enforcement level on the city level because if you're a lodging establishment, you get inspected, right? You have to go through the entire licensing process, tourism tax collection, sales tax collection, fire, health, down to even health department requiring the changing of utilities every day. So like towels and, coffee filters and those types of requirements that health departments normally check and look into. You don't think of those kind of things in a permanent living situation. So we'd really appreciate that from a local level to have that clarified because it's a pervasive issue here in Branson.
Alex, if I can, I've been invited to the Lodging Association's Board of Directors meetings that are held monthly. So if you want to define some of this to get some clarity, I'd be more than happy to bring it to the Lodging Association and get their input and report back on that.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And with that, what I'd like to do is, I know you have additional information. I didn't think that this topic was going to be handled in one meeting. So if we can, let's schedule another study session to not only go through these, but maybe also get some input from the board of what of these 10 items that are listed, what changes, modifications, or additions that we want to make to that list. You okay with that?
Absolutely. Whatever the board and the mayor decide, happy to execute that.
Okay. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this study session.
So moved.
Mayor, we got one last thing, if you don't mind. My apologies. We also wanted to talk this evening about local legislative priorities. I have a proposed timeline here. We obviously handled the state level issues. A few aldermen submitted in some local issues as well. Would really like your direction and guidance from the board and the mayor on how you'd like to see this process also fulfilled. We did a one-pager, right, of a timeline for state priorities. For local priorities, we've had a number of submissions in, and so we put together just a draft timeline. I didn't know if you wanted to if you wanted to go and spend the last 15 minutes of this meeting going through the local priorities and have them combined on the state and local at a future Board of Aldermen meeting. Just open the floor to you all of what you'd like to further
I
discuss.
was really hoping to give this board an opportunity to have a break between this meeting and our 6 o'clock
Sounds good.
Board of Aldermen meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Does this draft timeline look okay, or should we?
My suggestion would be we make that part of an additional study session and discuss it all then.
Perfect. Okay.
We're going to have a meeting, yeah.
Thank you.
So I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Motion is second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you. We'll return at 6 o'clock for our Board of Aldermen meeting.